Shall I come in?
Yes.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
Здравей.
Hello.
Hello, hi.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the British Bulgarian Business Association virtual wine tasting. I've been to many strange meetings in the last year, but I can certainly say this is the first time that I've been to a virtual wine tasting, and I imagine it's the same for most of you, but I hope it will be an enjoyable and interesting experience for everyone. There's been a long history of drinking Bulgarian wines in the United Kingdom, and we hope tonight that we can awaken further interest in drinking what are very good wines, and I think wines that have improved enormously in quality over the last 10 to 15 years. To introduce myself, my name is Gilbert McCall. I'm the Vice Chair of the British Bulgarian Business Association. I've lived in Bulgaria for many years. I've therefore drunk a lot of Bulgarian wine and Bulgarian rakia as well, but I certainly don't claim to be an expert in it, and I hope that we can increase your knowledge tonight, although possibly not from me. Just a couple of words about the British Bulgarian Business Association. As the name says, we are promoting business between Britain and Bulgaria. We are working with business associations in Bulgaria and the various British Chambers of Commerce, and we are using these networks to let individual businesses connect with each other so that they can do business between the two countries. And it's something that we are seeing a lot of success with, and we want as almost to develop further. Now, you'll be glad to know it's not just me that will be talking this evening. I'd like to welcome on my right, Ivaylo Katerski from ViaVino. He is our main presenter this evening. Ivaylo is the founder of ViaVino, a project for wine tourism, which he has been working on for the last 7 years, both in Bulgaria and abroad. He's also chairman of the Bulgarian Association of Wine Professionals, and is a holder of level 3 of the award in wines of the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. So he's certainly someone who knows a lot about Bulgarian wine, and I'm sure you'll find his presentation of great interest. I'd also, on my far right, welcome Omid Rizvani. He is the CEO of our sponsor this evening, Mobile Wave Solutions, and we thank him very much for his sponsorship, and he'll be saying a little bit later on to you. Now, I want, just before we get started with Ivo, I want just to thank a few people and make a few introductory remarks. I'd like to thank DiVino for hosting the event this evening. I'd also like to thank the Old Cellar, we're based in the UK, for supporting us with the promotion and logistics, particularly within the United Kingdom. I'd also like to thank the Bulgarian Embassy in the UK and the UK Embassy in Bulgaria for their help in promoting the event as widely as possible. Special thanks this evening go to the world-renowned Master of Wine, Caroline Gilby, for joining us today, and she'll be taking part again later on. We have in the audience our friends from the British Chambers of Commerce, Sarah Howard, who's the chair of the British Chambers of Commerce, Anne-Marie Martin, director of Global Business Networks, as well as representatives of many local businesses and chambers of commerce in the UK. And there will be some other individuals who will be joining us to make comments during the evening. I'll just briefly mention who they are. And some of them will be presenting their wines, others will just be commenting on their experience. Todor Georgiev from Georgievi Brothers who are wine producers in the Struma Valley, the village of Plovsky near Sandansky. Tanya Avramova from the Bratanov Winery, which is based in Harmonby. And these, the wines we'll be tasting tonight are from their wineries. Also mention people who will say something. Martin Smith, who's the CEO of Varieties, and he is also a member of the board of the British Bulgarian Business Association. Liz Makarivi from the Edinburgh Chamber, and Dilian Kolev from the Old Cellar. So those are the introductions that I'd like to make, and I'll now pass you over to Omid Rizvani, CEO of Mobile Wave Solutions and our sponsor this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. We're very pleased to be here tonight and sponsoring this event. The British Bulgarian Business Association has got valuable position in our business. We have enjoyed being a partner, and we're looking forward to sponsoring many more events to come. I also like to say that Mobile Wave is a software powerhouse here in Bulgaria, and the talent that we have here in this country is amazing, and we're very proud to work with our customers and partners in UK. I'd like to take just a few seconds to thank 4 of our partners who have kindly accepted our invitation to join us tonight, and I'm sure they will enjoy learning more about the Bulgarian wine. One is Mr. Craig Wayman from the restaurant group in UK. They are the key partners of ours, and we're very pleased to have Craig with us here tonight. Paul Martin from Cognizant, he's with us here tonight. I hope he enjoys this event as much as we do here. Martin Tricky from Warner Brothers International Television Production, and also Ian Rushford from Sony Entertainment. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, and now I'll call upon Ivaylo Katerski, who will give his presentation.
Thank you, Gilbert. Well, good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining. I'll start directly with my presentation, and we are here to welcome spring and to this wine getaway to Bulgaria, my land of colors and variety of millennial old history, traditions and wine. Here's a brief introduction about Bulgaria. I am sure most of you know. That's why I will just briefly go through this slide. I've compared Bulgaria to the UK, so you can see 1/9 of the population of the UK, and Wales plus Scotland plus Northern Ireland is equal to Bulgaria regarding the area. Bulgaria is on the southeastern edge of Europe, on the crossroad between the south and the north, between the west and the east, and this strategic location has played an essential role for many ages and has influenced our history, and this is one of the main reasons for our turbulent history. I'll talk about the wine a bit later. Bulgaria was founded in the 7th century, by the way, and is one of the oldest European countries. One very important thing is that when we Bulgarians not that means no, and when we are shaking our head, we'd like to say yes. So that's why I'm warning always my guests, my wine guests, in order to be able to order wine properly in the wineries and to to move their head in a proper way to get some more wine. Going further, what do you know about Bulgaria? I think not much, but one of the things you know for sure is the communism. We had very tough period of time, approximately half a century, and for sure it is one of the things whose influence and follows are still here. So in our social life, in our unfortunately I would say in our social life, in our economy, in our policy, you can see a few pictures, these typical parades, these huge monuments, and the the red flags, of course. One more thing, quite related, quite strongly related to the UK. Unfortunately, the image of Bulgaria as a cheap travel destination. You can see this article by BBC from April 2019, and Sunny Beach became for third or fourth time in a row the cheapest European resort. Quite contrary to this bad image as a low-cost, all-inclusive country, I'd like to present you tonight different Bulgaria, one more beautiful and much more attractive travel destination. Well, starting from the past, it's and from the ancient times, wine has been produced in this area for nearly 5,000 years. I'm really proud that my land is among the cradles of wine producers, and the Thracians started the wine production. They were really skillful, and wine was very important for them, very special. The only drink whom they dedicated a wine god, Zagreus, and you've heard about Dionysius for sure of the Greeks, and later Bacchus by the Romans. It's a funny thing because the Thracians have not diluted wine by water as many other civilizations did, and that's why they were known as drunkards. But the Thracians replied that wine is for drinking and water is for bathing. You can see on my slide a few interesting heritage objects. It's the Thracian treasures. The Thracians were good in working with gold as well, and a fresco from a Thracian tomb. Both of them are associated and are strongly connected to the wine. These vessels, precise and fascinating, you could be sure for this. They were used for the rituals of wine. I'm talking about jugs and rhythms and phials, and I'm quite happy because many of these golden and silver treasures were found, and I'm very often visiting these treasures, which are exhibited in museums around Bulgaria. The Romans further developed the winemaking methods. They established trade relations, so Thracian wine was popular in the whole Roman Empire. Of course, the wine by the Thracians was much thicker, sweeter, and higher in alcohol. That's why I wouldn't compare it to the wine nowadays. Later, the Romans, of course, improved these methods, and white wine was produced as well. Moving further to the nearer past and nowadays, we had a very tough period of 5 centuries. As part of the Ottoman Empire, we were occupied by the Ottomans, and due to quite simple reasons, and namely the religion, wine was not allowed to be produced in bigger quantities, and that's why we didn't have wineries. Respectively, we don't have 26th or 29th generation of winemakers as Burgundy or Rheingau in Germany has. Anyway, however, wine was allowed to be produced in smaller quantities as homemade wine, and you can see even nowadays when you travel in the countryside, in the small villages, there are vineyards, small vineyards in almost every single house, used for producing of wine or rakia, used for table grapes, or simply used for keeping shadow in the hot summer months. But that's clear evidence how deeply wine is incorporated in our souls, in our identity. Later, during the communism, the goal and the priority was quantity, so a lot of Bulgarian varieties disappeared and were substituted by more fertile ones. And as I said, quality was not the focus. Bulgaria was the second largest wine exporter in the world. It's really fascinating, and actually fourth importer in the UK. Here I'd like to show you one book and to quote a short part of it. It's not an advertisement, it's a sincere recommendation. It's a comprehensive and useful book in English by our special guest tonight, Caroline Gilby, and quite useful really for me. The language is not complicated, and as you can see, it's not only about Bulgaria but also about Romania and Moldova. So I wanted to make it connected to the UK. So the UK started with 95 standard cases, or 8.5 hectoliters of Bulgarian Cabernet Sauvignon in 1982, and Bulgarian wines quickly built up a reputation for being a good source of cheap, cheerful and easy to understand wines. Volumes increased rapidly, reaching 193,000 hectoliters, more than 2 million cases by 1990, according to Schmidt's Italy. Bulgaria became the fourth largest red wine supplier to the UK market after France, Italy and Spain, and the UK was by this time one of Bulgaria's most important export markets. Bulgaria was the first country to market its wines under their varietal names long before the New World jumped on this bandwagon. Nowadays, Bulgarian has been substituted, of course, for clear reasons, by Australia and New Zealand, but at this point Bulgaria was right after France, Spain and Italy the biggest wine importer in the UK, and in a few moments I'd like to kindly invite Caroline to say a few words about the time she discovered Bulgarian wine and how it has changed from her point of view. But before that, I would like to say a few words about the wine nowadays in Bulgaria. I'm really happy and glad because wine is one of the areas, one of the sectors in Bulgaria which are developing very well. Bulgarian wines are getting better and better. They are improving. We still need some quality recognition after this mass image from the past, but thanks to some dedicated winemakers, thanks to the passion, the professional work, thanks to the EU also, because EU funds supported the construction of many wineries in Bulgaria 10, 15, 20 years ago, and thanks also to wine consultants from abroad. Bulgarian wine is really getting better. So, Caroline, I'd like to kindly invite you to say a few words.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ivaylo. Nice to be here and to be able to talk about my passion for this little country in the heart of Eastern Europe. So I first met Bulgarian wine as a student before I decided that wine was going to be my career. And I was chairman of the Bath University Wine Society, and I do remember very much looking forward with excitement to the arrival of the Oryahovitsa Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon from 1979, I think it was then. So this would have been about 1987, 88. And, you know, it was astonishing at that point that you could get wines that were nearly 10 years old, decent and drinkable, and affordable by students. So it wasn't long after that I decided the wine trade rather than science was where I was going. You know, life behind the microscope turned out to be not what I wanted to do. So I joined the wine trade and got a job as a junior wine buyer. So this also connected me to Bulgaria because as the junior member of the team, I got Eastern Europe as my first buying responsibility. And because it wasn't very glamorous, you know, it wasn't the fancy chateaus of Bordeaux or Champagne or Burgundy or whatever. So yeah, I cut my teeth traveling to Bulgaria as a very junior wine buyer. But of course, volume wise, it was absolutely huge. You know, I was looking at a chart from Decanter from 1989, and Bulgarian Cabernet Sauvignon was like the fourth biggest wine brand in the UK in 1989. So it was hugely, hugely important for us. And, you know, 1989 was exactly when I started my job as a junior buyer. So definitely a very different business at that time, you know, vast collectivized vineyards that were able to do something that Western Europe couldn't do then, which was deliver these really, really consistent, big volume blends. And, you know, whenever I do a tasting of Bulgarian wine nowadays, you know, lots of people say, oh, what happened to Bulgarian Cabernet Sauvignon? We used to really enjoy that. So there's residual fondness for Bulgarian wines. But of course, for lots of reasons that, you know, if you want the details, I go into in my book, privatization, land restitution, complete change in the structure of the industry. I have to say quality progress and so on faltered somewhat during this period from about 1990 to probably the early 2000s. And I also had a bit of a gap with Bulgaria during that time. And of course, the New World came along and did what Bulgaria had been doing, you know, these cheerful, reliable, varietally labelled wines. So Bulgaria lost its space for many, many reasons. But Bulgaria and I think, have grown up together in wine. And the industry today is very, very different. You know, it's driven by passionate private individuals. Yes, there are still some big wineries, but lots of small family wineries, private estates, and it's a much smaller industry, but better quality. Very dynamic, lots of, because, and again, this is something I could go into in lots of detail, the current laws don't really work as they should do. But what that means is winemakers are kind of free to experiment and try unusual blends and different ways of making wine, and, you know, to just relearn what was lost during those years of communism, where there's sort of links between land and people and wine were a bit broken. And of course, they had been under the Ottomans as well. So, say the last 30 years have been, you know, an incredible ride of going from that quantity, those collectivized wineries, those huge, huge places, to a completely different scene today. And I always say to people that, you know, wine is an incredible lens for understanding a country, because it brings together several really important things in your glass. It brings together the place and the climate, so the soils, the sunshine, the rainfall, the cold winters, the warm summers, all those kinds of things affect the flavour of the grapes. It also brings together the culture of the people that are making the wine, you know, their passions, what they want to achieve. So it is this incredible lens in a glass as a way of understanding a people and a place. So yeah, that's part of what I wanted to share in my book, and happy to talk about it at great length, but it's not my presentation today. I'll talk a bit more when we come on to the wines.
Thank you for tuning in, and we could go further with the presentation. Brilliant, thank you. Well, a few words about Bulgaria as a wine producing country. You can see the main varieties: Melnik, broad-leaved Mavruta, broad-leaved Melnik, Gamza, Rubin, and a few white ones. Dimiat and red Muscat. So you can see white varieties are only a few, but we still have this trend and way of thinking, especially by the older generation, that the only wine which counts is the red one. Well, things are changing, but we have a joke that there are plenty of songs about red wine and only one about white wine, and it is white wine, why aren't you a red wine? Well, moving further, you can see a few data, statistics about Bulgaria. 64,000 hectares vineyard area, relatively similar to Hungary, and let's say 60% of Bordeaux, for example. But less than half of this area is harvested for wine. There are reasons mostly connected to the communism for that, but I don't want to get into details. There are lots of abandoned vineyards, unfortunately. And one interesting fact is that Cabernet and Merlot make up 1/3 of the vineyard area in Bulgaria. You'll ask why, and the answer is simple. Many wine experts think that Bulgarian terroir is relatively similar to the one in Bordeaux, and that's why a lot of wineries prefer to work with these Bordeaux varieties. However, I will mention a few very popular names in the wine business, like Michel Rouland and Graf von Nieperk. They have projects in Bulgaria and they produce exactly Bordeaux blends. And one more clear evidence about the importance of these wines is that the best Bulgarian wine for 2020, according to the most reliable ranking and contest in Bulgaria, DiVino Top 50, is one blend of Cabernet Sauvignon 55%, Merlot 35%, and Cabernet Franc 10%. So you can see one typical left bank Bordeaux blend. You can see more data, nearly 300 registered wineries, and they're increasing. 860,000 hectoliters of wine produced in 2019. I could compare it to the UK. Let me tell you, it's 79,000 hectoliters produced in the UK from total area of around 2,000 hectares. And when I talk about wine, I should mention its best friend, the food, of course. A few tasty pictures of Bulgarian food. Of course, you can see the flagship salad, Shopska salad. You can see the pot-style meals in pots. I mean, you can see the fresh salads and the fresh fruit, vegetable, the chili peppers, beans, and one very traditional beverage, rakia, a grappa-style beverage made of grape, mostly, but also from plums and apricots and other fruit. Things are changing and things are improving. There are a lot of Bulgarian young chefs who try to improve the cuisine, and by presenting traditional recipes in a most modern way. Of course, one note, when I'm talking about Bulgarian cuisine, I would say that I would prefer to call it generally Balkan cuisine. I've talked about this crossroad and this plenty of influences from different civilizations, and here on the Balkans we have similar meals. We have, for example, kebabchi in Bulgaria, chibabchichi in Serbia, kebab in Turkey. In Greece they have also something similar. So it's really difficult to distinct Bulgaria. But anyway, we have some special meals, of course, and you can see already the gourmet style cuisine of Bulgaria as well is developing. Herbs are very traditional for Bulgaria, one of the biggest exporters and producers of herbs, and a lot of milk products. Gilbert, I'd like to ask you something here. Talking about food, you live for many years now in Bulgaria. Do you have a favorite meal or something which you would recommend to our guests tonight?
Well, yes, I mean, I like many Bulgarian foods, and as you say, it's very much a regional cookery. They're similar to Turkish and Greek dishes as well. But I think, and people are always surprised when I say this, when I'm asked, and I have been asked quite often what my favourite Bulgarian dish is, and I say shkembe chorba, which translates in English roughly into tripe soup, which sounds rather an unusual thing, but if it's done with lots of garlic, I think I should probably be drinking rakia with that rather than any of your fancy wines. So it's not a gourmet food, but it's one that I rather like, and it's certainly very traditional in Bulgaria.
For sure, yeah, one of my favorite meals as well, I have to confess. Okay, well, we are already here on the wine map of Bulgaria, and Bulgaria has only 2 official wine regions. It's a very hot and disputable topic. Many wine experts assert, and it is my opinion as well, that only 2 wine regions do not depict the nuances of Bulgarian wine in a proper way, and we need to have 5 or even 9 wine regions. But again, I don't want to get into the details. I will speak about 5 unofficial wine regions and travel destinations. Of course, I will start with the red fortress of Bulgaria. I've called it in this way. I'm talking about the Thracian Lowland, because this is the place for full-bodied, serious and higher in alcohol red wines, powerful wines in one word, and it's one of the biggest wine area with the highest density of wineries with many sub-regions. But I think I've talked too much and our glasses are still empty, so I'd like to kindly ask my colleagues to pour the first wine. It is made by Bratanov, one cozy, very nice and highly respected from me family winery from the Thracian Lowland, or probably Tanya from the owner's family will make a correction and will mention one sub-region in the eastern part of the Thracian Lowland. So Tanya, it's my pleasure. I'd like to kindly invite you to introduce and to present your wine, and afterwards I would like to kindly ask Caroline to say a few words about the wine as well and to evaluate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivaylo. Good evening, everybody. Just really thrilled to join you tonight for this online tasting and presentation of Bulgaria as an exciting wine destination. I hope you have the chance very soon to visit us and see and taste the wines and the beauties of this country. The first wine you'll be tasting tonight is one of our very easy approaching, enjoyable wines. It's a blend which will be quite typical for our region, and namely it's a very small region within the Thracian Valley, and it's called Sakar. Sakar is the name of the mountain, of the smallest mountain in Bulgaria, situated in the very southeastern part of the country, close to the Greek and Turkish border. surrounded by 4 rivers, but the main one is Marica River. So Sakar, within the last 20 years, had earned a name for one of the most distinctive wine terroirs in Bulgaria, with I wouldn't say too much wineries, just a big concentration within a small place. So our family winery is part of this group of newly formed wine producers in this region. Though the region has wine growing traditions for thousands of years, wine producing in terms of industrial wine producing as started here in the beginning of the 21st century. And most of the wineries are family owned, like our winery. And this wine you're tasting tonight is made of 3 of the most planted white varieties in the region, which proved to be quite suitable for our warm climate, which is mostly, I would say, it's almost Mediterranean climate. So you have in your glasses a blend of Chardonnay, Viognier, and Tamyanka. All 3 varieties have a different contribution to this blend. So the Chardonnay is giving the structure of the blend. It's more neutral. And Viognier and Tamyanka are more aromatic varieties with different profile aroma. So they're both complementing a very nice floral and spicy aromas to this wine. To my opinion, Caroline will give you more tasting notes on the wine, but I find it quite enjoyable, fresh and balanced. Though you will taste the warmth of the wine, you couldn't expect too much freshness or a lighter body, etc., because our climate is quite warm and hot, with less rain, but we achieve balance in the wines because of the very big differences between temperatures during the day and during the night. So cheers and enjoy.
Cheers. Cheers. Na zdravie. Thank you very much, Tanya, for this introduction and presenting this beautiful, refreshing white wine from the south of Bulgaria, and this beautiful area very close to the borders with Turkey and Greece. And now I'd like to give the floor again to Caroline to say her opinion about this wine.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, we talked a bit about, white wine, why can't you be red in Bulgaria? But actually, there are some really good white wines appearing in Bulgaria today. And as I said, I like the way that wineries are thinking innovatively about, this is a very non-classic blend of grapes, a Burgundy grape, a Southern grape, and then a Mediterranean grape in Tamyanka, which is a local selection of Muscat. But I think the 3 grapes work nicely together. You've got the sort of floral aromatics from the Muscat. You've got some weight and spice from the Viognier, which does really well in southern Bulgaria. And then you've got the freshness and the structure of the wine from Chardonnay, which I also think, really performs well in Bulgaria. And there's something else I should mention here, and that is that I worked out quite recently that Bulgaria was actually the world leader in proportion of women winemakers in the wine industry. Basically 50% of wineries in Bulgaria have women winemakers, and nobody else in the world gets anywhere close. And Bratanov, I mean, it's a story of a father and two sons, but Tanya, who's married into the family and looks after the marketing, but also the winemaker Maria Stoyeva is very well regarded, and she qualified in Burgundy and then came back to Bulgaria to create wines with a sense of place. Not industrial wines that could come from anywhere in southern Bulgaria, but specifically here we're talking about this South Sakar region, which has this amazing concentration of really good wineries. It's almost like a little, Côte d'Or for Bulgaria, where there are so many good wineries who are really, But what I like about this wine is that there's a lightness and a freshness about it, even though it comes from the really quite hot far south of Bulgaria. So well done, guys.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you once again, Tanya. You will be introduced again and included in our presentation later tonight. And let's go further with my presentation and the Red Fortress. It's also the place of our flagship variety of Mavrut wine, the Red King. I'll talk about an interesting event dedicated to Mavrut a bit later. And this mountain, which you can see on the slide, is the Rhodope Mountains, one of my favorite travel destinations, personally speaking. Very, very beautiful with many friendly people, and it is believed that this is the birthplace of the wine god Dionysius. Of course, all types of wineries could be found here: modern, small, artisan, big ones. And you can see a lady working with the shovel. So not really my wine guests should work in order to deserve some wine. Of course, I'm kidding, but it's really fascinating how many wineries are located here and producing different wines. I would like to present Bulgaria in a more attractive and more lively way during my tours, and so I'm providing participative experiences for my guests, especially in the south. There are a lot of opportunities for my guests to start dancing, to start to learn singing, to of course cooking and tasting of wines, wearing unique and authentic costumes also. A few words about Plovdiv as well. It's the European Capital of Culture 2019, in the heart of the Thracian Lowland, second largest city in Bulgaria, one very beautiful city, and it's strongly related to wine, of course. And also, once again, you can see a picture from the Thracian Lowland. We're moving to the north, and namely to the Rose Valley. It's clear, the roses, but it's also a wine region locked between two mountain ranges. I'm talking about the Stara Planina mountain, the Balkan mountain range, and one smaller, Sredna Gora. A few beautiful wineries could be found here as well, of course. I would like to say a few words about this quite strange pinkish grape called red Muscat. Probably some of you would find similarities with Pinot Grigio regarding the strange color of the grapes. It's a white wine variety, giving very fresh, very floral wines with hints of tropical fruit and roses as well. And some wine experts assert that this should be the white flagship wine of Bulgaria. Roses, of course, I could not skip the roses, the symbol of Bulgaria. They were brought to our country by the Ottomans 3 or 4 centuries ago from Persia and Syria. Nowadays, Bulgaria is one of the leading rose oil producers, and you can see the rose. It's actually not similar, it's different compared to the rose which we all know. I'd like to highly recommend you to visit the area in May or in the beginning of June during the harvest. There are a lot of celebrations dedicated to the rose harvest, but also the scent, this beautiful, amazing scent of roses everywhere is quite fascinating. And a few figures, so I've converted them to the British metric system. 1 pound of rose oil costs approximately €3,000, and for the production of it are needed 4,000 pounds of roses. And it's not roses but blossoms, because only the blossoms of the roses are being used for the production of rose oil. Lavender is also very interesting and popular in this area. Bulgaria is one of the leading lavender oil producers as well. And the Thracian kings from our history, Rose Valley is known also as the Valley of the Thracian kings. Well, we're moving further to the Struma Valley, to the smallest and sunniest area, to one very romantic place where broad-leaved Melnik vine is the local pride. You can see on the left slide why is it called broad-leaved Melnik vine. This is my hand on the picture, and believe me, my hand is not small at all, and it is almost completely covered by the leaf of this variety. And it's time to go to the second wine, to grab the second wine. It's a rosé from a small cozy winery, once again family one, run by two brothers, Georgievi, and it's my pleasure to invite one of the brothers, Toshko, to present his wine, and afterwards again Caroline will tell us more about this rosé made of Melnik.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present our wine and our winery. And we are very small winery. We are two brothers, and the wine is place where we are connected because we are working in two different industries, and wine is joining us. And our winery is situated in small village next to Sandansky. The village is called Poski, but Sandansky is a very famous recreation center, and our region has the highest average temperature in Bulgaria, something like almost 14 degrees, which helps our wines to have enough sugar for alcohol, but it's not only that one. Our village and our vineyards are situated in the Pirin mountain, and the altitude is something like 370 meters above the sea level, which give our grape very good conditions during the day when the temperatures are very high, and the wine is making a lot of sugar, the grape, but during the evenings are cold, and the temperatures are lower than 20 degrees, and at that time the grape take a rest and produce some other benefits. As I said, we have our winery is very small. We are producing just 10 to 15,000 bottles. Mainly, we are focused on this local variety grape, broadleaf Melnik, just because it's a very big challenge and it's not easy for work. This may be the grape that is hardest grape for making wine, and it's very very tough grape for the winemakers. But for the rosés, many people said that this grape is very good for rosé, just because even the higher temperature, this grape needs a lot of sun, and sometimes the harvest is second week of November, which is almost the winter. And even that, sometimes grape is not doesn't have enough sugar, but it's not the same situation for our grape. And here the alcohol is quite high, like 14% alcohol. But I think the other elements of the wine, and maybe Caroline can say more about that, can help this. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, Toshko, and thank you for joining in. Caroline, would you please say a few words about the wine? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. First of all, I'd like to say what an absolutely stunning part of Bulgaria the Struma Valley is. It's just an amazing place. So beautiful, so dramatic as well. So well worth a visit, just for the scenery and the history of the place. But this grapevine, Shiroka Melnik, the broadleaf vine of Melnik, it's been known for at least 500 years. Merchants from Dubrovnik used to buy it. Famously, Winston Churchill used to order it. So, it has a long track record, but as the winemaker pointed out, it's actually quite difficult to make good red wine out of it, and especially not in the style of kind of forward, juicy fruit that consumers enjoy nowadays. And quite a lot of people are now working with it as a grape for rosé, because it keeps this acidity and freshness about it, which, in such a warm, sunny region, there's something really appealing about a nice fresh rosé. So a couple of things that I like about this wine. I think one is that, as you'll be able to see, it's not one of these very pale Provence style rosés that have become all the rage. And I and a friend of mine who writes about rosé wine specifically, kind of campaigning for people to remember that rosé wines with colour are valid too, because actually you get lots of flavour in these wines. So there's lots of, sort of red fruit, strawberry fruit, almost a spicy hint to it here, but it's that fruitiness that comes, when you smell it, and when you taste it too. You've got that juicy strawberry character, but then you've got the freshness that comes through at the end. So it's quite I suppose it's quite a gastronomic rosé. Because it's fruity, you could drink it on its own, but I think it's got enough, with the alcohol's about 14%, so there's enough ripeness and weight here for it to also fit with food somewhere that you might have a light red wine as well, sort of salty cheese dishes and things like that would actually work quite well with this style of wine. So yeah.
Once again, we are moving further with my presentation about Bulgaria as a wine and food travel destination, and I've written here best wine travel destination, and you'd ask for sure, why is it the best wine travel destination in Bulgaria? For some reasons I would answer. First of all, the wineries here, and most important in my opinion, the wineries here work very, very well in collaboration with each other together, and the distances between the wineries are small as well. I would also mention the fact that the infrastructure here is very good, and you can visit the wineries easily. Another fact is that you could choose, and starting from cozy small family guest houses until very luxury hotels. For example, here is the one and only Relais et Chateau hotel and winery in Bulgaria. Well, Caroline mentioned about Sir Winston Churchill's favorite wine. Well, he honestly hated Bulgaria in a political way, and he has had a lot of bad influence. But regarding wine, he liked our wine, and he used to order it by the barrel. A few other interesting sites here is the major Bulgarian sightseeing, Krila Monastery, UNESCO Heritage Site. The sand rocks of Melnik were also mentioned by Caroline. Extremely beautiful, unique sand pyramids. You can see them on the picture, and also it's a proper place for adventure sports lovers. Struma River is used and appropriate for kayaking, for rafting, and other wide river sports. The Danube Plain. We're moving further north to the Danube Plain. If one asks me how could I describe the wines from the Danube Plain, I would use the word terroir. Well, you can taste here fascinating wines from international varieties, very strange, weird probably, but very traditional for terroir wines typical for this region. Gamze is the local pride here. It's producing very gentle and delicate red ones. It is known as Kadarka in Hungary, and it's somehow similar to Pinot Noir. Very beautiful wines, I would call them. About Gamze, of course, is a wine travel destination. I've written off the beaten path. Well, the distances here are bigger. It's less crowded, less visited, but it has also its advantage. And you can see here a few more beautiful pictures from one winery at the Danube. Also the vineyards near Belograchik rocks, these stunning stone pyramids and rocks in the northwestern corner of Bulgaria. And one picture from a cooperage in a small village called Vrăceș in the southern part of the Danube Plain is the center, close to Sofia actually, is the center of the cooper business in Bulgaria. There are plenty of producers, and Bulgarian oak is relatively good. Many wineries use Bulgarian oak barrels for their wines, and visiting these places with my guests is also exciting because very often these guys show how they work more in an artisan and craft way. I'll make an exclusion now, and will mention one specific winery because they deserve it. I'm talking about Burovica, and this is the winery, one of the wineries, but probably the leading one, which made the breakthrough of quality Bulgarian wine on the world scene. Thanks to these two guys, Adriana and Ogi. Unfortunately, Ogi passed away a couple of years ago, but they are guilty they're the reason for the fact that Bulgarian wine was highly evaluated. They are among the first wines which were introduced and included in the Wine Bible, the so-called Wine Bible, the World Atlas of Wine by Hugh Johnson and Jancis Robinson, and in 2006 their wine was the first wine from Eastern Europe, very highly awarded by probably one of the most prestigious wine contests, Decanter. So it's really one fascinating terroir winery which is contributing to the quality recognition of Bulgarian wines, which is our goal. And I personally would like to see more and more quality wines on the market and in the shops worldwide. A few other things which you could enjoy in the Danube Plain. I personally adore mountain biking, and this is a very beautiful place for cross country. You can see the Belograd rocks in the right corner of your screens, and one of my favorite destinations and favorite cities, our previous capital Veliko Trnovo, is also located in the Danube Plain. We are now near the Black Sea, and here the word which I would use is elegance. Very fair, very trendy wines are being produced here. Again, better and better, mostly white wines, but also good examples of Pinot Noir, of Cabernet Franc. All in all, this is the place for white wine lovers, and also it's really a trendy place because it's following the trends worldwide for less oaky and more elegant wines. And what could you find any better combination than sea and wine? So it's really pleasant to spend here in some time in the near the Black Sea. You can see a few interesting small family wineries as well, and the sea, of course, is the highlight here. But I'd like to mention two monuments which could be visited there in the northeastern part of the Black Sea. I'm talking about the Madara horse rider, one of the first, even the first stone relief in Europe, dating back to the 8th century, a UNESCO heritage site. And also in the middle you can see one typical huge brutal monument from the communism time, built in 1982, founders of Bulgarian state. I will tell you only that for its construction were used nearly 1.8 million cubic foot of concrete. So it's immense, it's really big and very valuable and interesting also from architectural point of view. Well, here are my 10 reasons to visit Bulgaria, but I'd like to kindly ask for the third wine, and we are going to taste the red cherry on the cake for tonight. It's another blend of wine made by Bratanovi. Caroline will say a few words about it afterwards, and I'd like to ask Tanya to present the wine.
Thank you, Ivo. To be fair, this is one of my favorite wines we produce in the winery. Though we started with many varietal wines and just a few blends, and this blend we started making it in 2013. That was the first vintage, and I'm very proud. It's a little bit of my idea, but quite well realized by our winemakers at this time. And the blend in this vintage 2015 is made of 3 varietals, which are quite emblematic, I would say, for our region. Cabernet Franc, which is, though a relatively new variety for Bulgaria as a whole, it found its place here in this climate, and it's quite opposite to the Cabernet Franc style you've probably tasted from Loire or more cool climate places. And we added Merlot as the most popular variety all over Bulgaria, but very, very related to Sakar region. When you say Merlot from Sakar, everybody knows it's the best Merlot in Bulgaria. And as a spice to this blend, we used the local Bulgarian variety, Rubin. Rubin, as you probably know, is the name of a precious stone, but it's a name of a Bulgarian variety created as a crossage between Syrah and Nebbiolo, somewhere in the 1950s. It's not quite widely spread, just a few plantations in Bulgaria, unfortunately. So it's around 15% in the blend. By the way, for anyone having the wine at home, on the back label, you can read the specifics about the wine. This wine, it's not just my favorite wine. It seems to be quite highly appreciated both by professionals and by wine lovers. So it already has a golden medal from the Balkan wine competition. It is placed in number 6 position from this year's ranking of DiVino Top 10. And it's just yesterday we found out that it's awarded a silver medal from a competition in Paris, which is consisted only from female winemakers. It's a concours féminisé in Paris. So a lot of awards, but the main award is in our glasses. And it's the most important thing. A very well-balanced wine with a very nice evolution in the bottle, because after 3 years in barrels, different barrels, this wine is already, I'll tell you exactly, it's already 2 years in the bottle after this. So you have a wine of almost 5 years old and more. And those 3 varieties, we also produce as varietal wines in our premium line, private reserve line, in a very limited edition wines, where we select the best barrels. But to be fair, I enjoy this one more. And I would like to add just a few more things and leave you to enjoy the wine and the rest of the presentation. Bulgaria has a lot to show to you. Bulgaria has a lot of nice surprises. Bulgaria has a lot of discoveries you will find once you come here. And I'm sure you'll find more than you expect. So visit Bulgaria and its wine regions. Cheers.
Cheers, Tanya. Cheers, Gilbert. Before giving the floor to Caroline, well, Gilbert, what kind of wines do you prefer to drink? What do you think about Bulgarian wines, generally speaking? And if you have a favorite wine, you could mention it probably.
Yeah, well, if we talk about Bulgarian wines here, I don't have a particular favourite wine, but I came here just over 20 years ago, and at that time, what everybody was saying and what I thought myself was that the red wines were generally a lot better than the white wines, at least what I was finding when I was going out to buy wine. I think this was, I don't think this was just me, I think this was pretty true at that time. But as we see tonight, and as I've seen over the years, I think the white wine quality has increased dramatically, especially if you look for the better quality wines than was the case when I first came here. So I would think I would answer your question, say I don't want to, there's one particular bottle I like, depends on my mood and various things. Say probably in the dark winter nights, I prefer to drink red wine. And if I'm at the beach in the summer, a nice chilled white wine is probably the best thing that I can have.
Thank you. Thank you, Gilbert. And now to the wine professional at the highest possible level. So Caroline, could you please share a few thoughts about this wine, and afterwards your general impression from the wines which we have tasted.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I too really love this wine. I think one of the things that I have seen evolve in the last maybe 5 or 6 years is that winemakers have more confidence in their terroir, the places where they're growing their grapes. And it's not just about sheer power. There was definitely a phase when a lot of top Bulgarian red wines were just made to be huge, powerful, concentrated wines. And I think winemakers now have the confidence to rein back a little bit and to make their wines more elegant, more harmonious, more balanced. And as part of that, actually, I think Cabernet Franc as a grape is making quite a good contribution. It really suits sort of quite warm climates like Bulgaria. There's also some amazing Cabernet Franc in southern Hungary, which is a similar sort of latitude and climatic zone. And what Cabernet Franc does is it keeps freshness and vibrancy and elegance. So that's the core of this wine. What Merlot does is give this sort of plush, plummy fruit in the mid-palate, so brambles and plums particularly, because if Cabernet Franc misses something, it's that fruit and flesh in the mid-palate. So the secret of a good blend is putting together things so that the whole is better than the sum of the parts. So you've got this freshness and vibrancy from the Cabernet Franc. You've got this plush fruit, this plummy, brambly, mid-palate sort of fruity fleshiness from the Merlot. And then the Rubin, which is this local grape variety, which is a cross of Nebbiolo and Syrah created back in 1944. So it's a Bulgarian grape variety, but with Western European roots, I suppose. But what that does is give a sort of dark, almost black fruit and maybe a hint of violets and a little bit of licorice coffee kind of character. But it also makes it uniquely Bulgarian. You know, a blend like this, nobody else is making. It can only come from this winery, to be honest. So I like the fact that, you know, this is a winery that's got all these things going on, and it has something uniquely Bulgarian about it as well in terms of the blend and the style of the wine. And say another thing I just want to mention here is, you know, people that remember Bulgarian wine from the old days, and here I'm talking about the 80s and 90s, will have thought of it as cheap. Now, it's not cheap anymore, but I do honestly believe that it offers great value for money. You know, you're getting a huge amount of wine in your glass here for the money you pay, which I actually don't know what it costs in Bulgaria. I do know what it costs in the UK from the Old Cellar. And I think, you know, there's so much going on here. You've got complexity, you've got texture, you've got weight, and you've got this lovely harmony of the way the grape varieties work together. So I think this is a good example of the sort of innovation and dynamism and progress in Bulgarian wine in recent years.
For joining in tonight, and I have a few more things to share with you. My personal 10 reasons to visit Bulgaria. I'm starting with the fact that, quite contrary to the low-cost, all-inclusive destination, Bulgaria's exciting. Bulgaria is still unrevealed, and Bulgaria is a new and I would say interesting food and wine travel destination. We're safe, we're part of the EU quite conveniently connected to the UK. In normal times there are 8 or 9 flights a day only to London. We have the millennial history of wine production from the Thracians, from the Greeks, from the Romans. One very important thing is that the friendly attitude and the family wineries where I'd like to bring my guests mostly to such cozy and wineries, family wineries producing excellent Bulgarian wine. We can still, and hopefully it will last long, we can still meet the winemakers personally to share some thoughts, to talk to them, and I think it's quite important for wine and food experiences. Hospitality is one of our strengths. We have excellent wines, but also very hospitable people, and also tasty meals. For those of you who have not been to Bulgaria yet, beautiful nature. Hopefully, I presented it within the short time of the presentation. Culture, stories, adventures, spa and wellness. Bulgaria has more than 600 mineral springs, so one wine and food experience could be upgraded to a comprehensive tour. And I'd like also to mention my partners from Odyssein, one of the leading travel agencies in Bulgaria, with whom we are organizing our tours. They were founded in 1990, and their professional background, knowledge and experience and competence and passion for wine, with me, we are trying to provide the best possible wine and food experiences to our guests, accurate, reliable, and interesting, exciting experiences. With regard to COVID and also with regard to my view about wine tourism, I prefer to work with smaller groups and to organize private tours in order to every guest to feel special during the tours and have one memorable wine and food experience in Bulgaria. At the end of my presentation, I'd like to recommend you a few sources of information. Not very modest. My website ViaVino is here, but also winetrips.eu. A few books together with the book of Caroline. Of course, I'd like to show you one of the best guides of Bulgaria. It's DiVino wine guide, its annual edition, and also there are a few other things like the Bulgarian wine catalog and the wine routes of Bulgaria as well. Annual events, I should mention at the end of my presentation, the interesting events of wine in Bulgaria. Trifun Zarezan, the main Bulgarian wine holiday, it's throughout the country. On the 14th of February we have celebrated wine for ages, and a couple of years ago we started celebrating also St. Valentine's, so it's the best possible combination probably on the 14th of February, wine and love. In Plovdiv there are two interesting wine events. The main Bulgarian professional event is DiVino Taste, which is being conducted in mid-November, and one very interesting event which is planned for the first time for the end of October, dedicated to our flagship variety, International Mavrut Day. It's my pleasure as a chairman of the Bulgarian Association of Wine Professionals to be part of the team who is organizing this event. Later on, Dilian will say probably shortly a few words about it, because there will be interesting events also in the UK, thanks to the Old Cellar. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and to of course to the British Bulgarian Business Association for this great presentation and for the opportunity. And now I'd like to quickly give the floor to our guest speakers, Martin and Liz. Hopefully you could hear me, and beyond the evaluation of the presentation and what you have learned, I have also a question for you. Could you find actually Bulgarian wines I mean, quality wines in the places where you live? Starting with Liz, probably.
Thank you very much, Ivo. What an absolute joy to be part of this. I mean, I've learned so much. I think it's a happy coincidence that I'm part of the Chamber Network, but I also am a great lover of Bulgaria, and I've been traveling to Bulgaria every year for the last 8 years. And I stay in a place between Ahaloy and Kobleshkovo. I think it's near Pomori, and it happens to be a sort of a vineyard resort. So usually I tramp across the fields, the sunflower fields, to a vineyard nearby. And you're absolutely right. Fantastic Cabernet Sauvignon, the Merlot. And what I really like is the Pamid grape, which is the local grape there. And I particularly like that the vineyard grows it and sells it almost at cost price, to keep that wine, that grape variety local, and make ensure that the locals can enjoy it. I kind of heard your point about Sunny Beach being that kind of low budget resort, but you know what? It's fine for a day. You go there. It's not the image that people associate with Bulgaria. I've got happy memories of sitting in Old Cellar, the peninsula, drinking my favorite, which is Silver Angel Sauvignon Blanc, enjoying octopus outside. I think Silver Angel is from the Thracian Valley. So I personally have fantastic experience of that food and wine. Pork knuckle, if you're going to ask me what my favorite dish is, pork knuckle and Shopska salad. You can't go wrong. And I would agree with you, for the value for money and the price, it would be very, very hard to match the quality of wines back in Edinburgh. We are extremely lucky. We've probably got more Michelin star restaurants or recommended restaurants outside, second only to London in the UK. Fantastic hospitality and tourism sector in Edinburgh. And I would like personally to see far more Bulgarian wines on the menu, and I will do absolutely everything I can to support that. I'm such a big fan of Bulgarian food and wine.
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you for joining in tonight and for your kind words about Bulgaria. I'm really happy to hear it from people like you who visit Bulgaria often and find this beautiful site of Bulgaria also as a wine and food travel destination. I'd like now to kindly invite Martin to say a few words.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. Well, thank you so much for hosting this evening. It's been really interesting and really lovely to hear more about Bulgaria and Bulgarian wine, and I've been scribbling down frantically. So I'm building my agenda for my grand tour of Bulgaria and the wine tour of the regions. My history with Bulgaria goes back to 1989, and that was first to Bulgarian wine, which was during a teenager spent in Borovets skiing one winter, and I just remember, probably don't remember too much about it, but I remember probably drinking a little bit too much Bulgarian wine at the time. But I've really, we've been doing business in Bulgaria now for maybe 6 years, and I've enjoyed. So I travel regularly to Sofia, and and some of my team and the people I work with have been taking me on a journey to some of the tremendous restaurants in Sofia, learning about the history of the place, and learning about how we've drunk wines that I remember from Chateau Copse, I believe we had some. I know we had some wonderful wine from there. A Reuben from with Dragomir, which was particularly special. But I think I've just discovered my new favourite. This is absolutely gorgeous, and I will be stopping up on some of that. But it's the choice of great wines has been amazing, really. And what I've had the real pleasure to do is to travel out of Sofia into the mountains and discover the the countryside around Bulgaria within probably a couple of hours of Sofia is tremendous, and the journey between Thessaloniki and Sofia is one of the most beautiful drives, taking you through the fabulous mountains in the wine regions in sort of the southwest of Bulgaria. So and I've got so much more to discover, and tonight has been really interesting. So thank you for that. Where I haven't been yet is to the Black Sea coast. So that's in my plan for the summer, all being well with travel restrictions. We'll be heading to Varna and the eastern regions. So I've made a particular list for my summer to explore more Bulgarian wine regions. But so far it's been a terrific journey, and I'm a big fan of Bulgarian wine, and I'm slowly falling in love with Bulgaria. So thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Liz, once again. So a comprehensive picture, starting with Liz at the Black Sea, and then the rest of the country by Martin has been covered. Thanks a lot once again. And we have a few questions here. What is the best time of the year to travel on a wine and food tour to Bulgaria? I would say that spring and autumn are quite convenient and beautiful. Summer could be quite hot in the wine areas. Winter could be quite cold. So I would definitely recommend you spring and autumn time. We could discover most of Bulgaria. And here's a question for Tanya. Actually, what is the exactly blend of Symbios, and what is the quantity and the share of each variety in the white wine?
Well, fairly not prepared with this information. Probably our winemaker could be helpful here. I just don't remember it, but I believe it was something around Chardonnay is prevailing with around 60%, I think. 25, around 25% of Viognier and 10 to 15% of Tamianka. This is the blend for the 2019 vintage, which our guests from UK are having. And because this vintage was already sold out in Bulgaria until today, so we delivered to the Bulgarian participants the new vintage 2020. There's a little bit of difference there in the blend because the Viognier is already prevailing, and then Chardonnay and Tamianka almost in the same proportions. But we're not making this wine, never making this wine with aiming specific proportions. The only aim is to get that balance, the freshness, and the combination of aromas and structure. And something very important I forgot to mention about this wine, it is completely wild fermented. If you know about fermentations, there are two types of fermentations: inoculated fermentations with industrial yeast, and fermentations that go with native yeast, with the native microflora that is formed on the grapes because of the specific conditions in the vineyards. In the red blend, it is only the Rubin is wild fermented and part of the Cabernet Franc, but the Symbios is completely wild fermented, so it's a very pure expression of our terroir and nature.
Thank you, Tanya. We have a few more minutes for your questions, so you have to be quick if you would like to ask me or some of our guests tonight. And in the meantime, I'd like to invite Dilan from the Old Cellar, our partner tonight, and the place to find one excellent selection of Bulgarian wines in the UK. your microphone, is it switched on? We cannot hear you.
It was indeed, and now
Okay.
I believe it's switched.
It's
on.
okay. Yeah. Thank you,
Obviously,
Lilian.
not to interrupt. It's been a great pleasure, guys, to witness the whole presentation, even for myself, knowing that much about Bulgarian wine up to now, to learn a few new facts that I would keep with me. So yeah, ourselves, on the behalf of myself and Stoyan, part of the Old Cellar team, we happen to be the main importers and distributors of quality Bulgarian wines in UK. As much as this is our business, we believe we have taken up the role of ambassadors for Bulgarian wine presently in the UK, having had that much history on that market. Of course, the whole rebuilding and the whole sort of new, we believe, we like to call it modern sort of expression of Bulgarian wine and the whole progress within the last decade or so. So again, a shout out to all the wine lovers to, of course, to hit us with emails, messages, approach us. We are here to help with helping you explore the Bulgarian wine, the progress of Bulgarian wine in the last so many years now. One quick thing, Ivo, of course, myself and yourself, we are part of the government or governing body of the Bulgarian Association of Wine Professionals, a newly created organization of quite a few of us in Bulgaria and around the world, wine professionals within different fields of the wine industry, getting together, joining forces to kind of help the Bulgarian wine come out of its shell, promote it internationally, promote it within Bulgaria, of course, and gain more and more exposure for the present quality of Bulgarian wine. And of course, as you did mention, 26th of October this year is one of our major and main events of the year, which is the International Mavrut Day. We believe choosing Mavrut as a leading grape variety, local indigenous country, this will, of course, make it a flagship, make it recognizable, make it distinctive for Bulgaria. But of course, we want it to be a celebration for Bulgarian wine as a whole in Bulgaria, in the major cities, amongst all the fields of the market, including, of course, restaurants, wine bars, specialized wine shops, etc., etc. Of course, a major shout out for Bulgarian wine is to be internationally, as presently we have over 15 countries that importers and distributors and, let's say, Bulgarian wine supporters in over 15 countries that have confirmed their contribution and their support to that event. So, of course, ourselves being based in London and have the ambition to be one of the leading countries internationally to celebrate Bulgarian wine and the International Mavrut Day in October later this year. So generally, guys, keep exploring, keep discovering, keep sort of communicating and shouting out about Bulgarian wine. And we're here to support all that.
Thank you, Dilian. Thank you very much for the kind words and the explanation about this exciting event which will take place in Bulgaria and the UK. Thanks to your company, of course, and to you personally. We have two more questions from our guests. Which oak barrels do Bulgarian prefer? Bulgarian, French, or American? I would say most of the wineries work with French oak barrels, with barriques, because they are more reliable and they are spotless. That's why the winemakers say. Also sometimes American, sometimes Bulgarian. Bulgarian is a good ratio, price quality. Still, we need to work on the quality, but it's gaining at recognition, and Bulgarian oak barrels are also preferred in many wineries. And one more question we have: there's the PDO Nova Zagora, what is the state of the discussion about zoning? Well, it's another quite disputable topic. It's part of also of our association, and our goal is to make more PDOs, more regions, in order to, I've talked about it during the presentation as well, in order to present in a fair, detailed way the nuances of all the places which produce high quality Bulgarian wines. PDO Nova Zagora still exists, yes, it's true, by one relatively big winery, but PDO wines have very small share. I think it's approximately 1% of the whole production of Bulgarian wine, and once again we would like to change this and to have high quality PDO wines from Bulgaria as well. Well, thank you very much once again to all the participants and guests of tonight's presentation. Thank you for joining in. Thank you once again to BBBA. The stuff is right here, you cannot see it, but they're working hard. Thank you very much. And thank you to DiVino and Emil Koralov. He's also behind the scene. Thanks a million for the great time which I had personally tonight. And I look forward to meeting you on a wine tour, on a wine and food tour in Bulgaria with ViaVino. Thank you once again and wish you all the best. Gilbert, thank you too.
Well, thank you. I think most of all to Ivo this evening. You've had much more work to do than anybody else has, although there's a lot of people behind the scenes here as well, and I want to thank them too. But that was most interesting. I think, you know, there's been big changes since I first came to Bulgaria at the end of the 90s, when it was kind of end of the Bulgaria and the Vinproms, and we've seen the great success story that we've had in the last 20 years. Different kind of industry perhaps, but there's a lot of high quality wines out there, and we need to promote that as much as possible. So thank you, Ivo, for, I certainly learned a lot, and I think other people did as well. I hope you've all enjoyed the evening, and perhaps we'll have another wine tasting soon, hopefully in person rather than through cameras. But I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and cheers from Bulgaria.